The following podcast contains alcohol-enhanced conversations about alcohol, as well as a potential for discussions about other topics of dubious, disturbing, possibly offensive, but usually hilarious interest. The opinions stated herein are solely of the person stating them, and any endorsement of these opinions by any other party is not implied. Foul language is likely, but intolerant viewpoints are not. Listener intoxication is advised. Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of the Whiskey Tangent Podcast. I'm Scott.
I'm Ed.
And tonight we have returned from our trip to Ireland.
Where we were imaginary because we were really here.
Virtual.
It's virtual.
This is a virtual trip.
We were in America, but just drinking Irish whiskey, so.
Correct. So now we're going to get in our time machine and we're going to go back in time. Harken back, if you will.
Way back.
When we were just babes in the woods sipping whiskey. We have the two whiskeys that we first fell in love with. And Ed is going to tell you which whiskeys those are.
Right. So we're still at the point where we're trying to help you out when you walk into the liquor store and you're still trying to figure out which bourbons or ryes you want to try out to spend your hard-earned pay on. So we figured, let's get back to the basics of the ones that brought us into this type of spirits.
Yeah, our origin story, if you will.
Right, like the two bourbons that we have are for me was Woodford Reserve, and for Scott was Knob Creek Bourbon. And they're still very much the same bourbons that we fell in love with well over 20 years ago.
Yeah, and a pretty decent value as well. I have a club card at the local liquor store, so I got them for a little bit of a discount, but they were both regular priced, almost $40.
Right, Woodford is a little bit higher historically from Knob Creek when you're out looking.
Yeah, a couple dollars.
If it's over 40, you probably want to back off. You can find it right around 38. So mine, like I said, was Woodford Reserve, which has been around for about 20 plus years. I don't want to put an exact year on it.
Why not?
Because I don't want to do the math, but all right, fine. It's like 23 years ago. Damn it. People don't care about that. It's about 20 years is good enough.
Somebody cares.
Well, I mean, it's not the recipe from 120 years ago. It's been.
Well, no, it's a new bourbon.
It's a newer bourbon,
yeah.
Which is, like we said before on here, has been following the trend for greater and greater demand of bourbon. So there are some things about Woodford Reserve which I knew nothing about when I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it simply because I just came across it and I liked it. It was delicious. And for me, it's everything that's great about a bourbon. It's very sweet in the sense of being corn heavy. It has very noticeable and easy to detect notes of caramel and vanilla. It's very low fire for a 90 proof spirit.
It's very smooth.
Very smooth drink. You can drink it right. You can drink it neat. I like to do it with a couple of cubes or maybe a big globe if you're feeling you don't want to water it down too much, but you want to chill it.
I've always called it the gateway drug to bourbon. It's the one that I point people to when somebody asks me, I want to get into whiskey, which one should I try? And I always say Woodford Reserve.
And the reason for that is while the fire is low, the master distiller from Woodford Reserve claims over 200 flavors are found in Woodford Reserve.
And that's just ridiculous.
Scott joked and said, I think I got 4 of them. I taste a little bit more than that, but it is legitimate that you can taste something different each sip of Woodford. It does change as the ice melts a bit, as the flavor opens.
Yeah, whether or not you can actually detect what you're tasting, yes. It is a subtle change.
The flavor is complex and it's dynamic. There's a lot of unique things to Woodford Reserve. First of all, they use pot still distillery.
Pot stills.
Pot stills to distill it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Pot still distillation?
Distillation.
Like Scott said. As opposed to most American bourbons, which are made with column stills. The mash bill for the Woodford Reserve is 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. On top of that, Woodford Reserve actually has created their own specific strain of yeast that they use. Mainly because it breaks down very slowly. It takes over 6 days to turn the sugar that's remaining after it ferments into alcohol. So the water that they use, which is from the Pepper Springs well that they dug on their property. Has lots of mineral content to it, which also adds to the complexity of the flavor. As an advantage to being owned by Brown and Forman Corporation, they have their own cooperage, which means they're able to order their barrels as needed to their exact specs. Scott, who else does Brown Forman own? What the corporation?
I know they own Old Forester,
Correct.
Which is a whiskey that we have in our locker at the Whiskey Lounge right now. Old Forester Prohibition 1920. It's delicious. It's 114 proof, so it's a little strong. You might want an ice cube in it.
Yeah, we started to drink that neat, and that came up and punched me in the face, so I put a couple ice cubes in it.
It's a delicious whiskey. But then we were looking, and surprise, Jack Daniels is owned by the Brown Forman Company.
Right, so they probably go through a lot of barrels over Jack Daniels, I'd imagine.
Jeez.
So the barrels are good, old-fashioned, white American oak barrels that are charred specifically to Woodford Reserve specifications.
Yeah.
I will tell you that they produce a double oaked also, and that the double oaked Woodford Reserve is exactly what it sounds like. They finish Woodford Reserve until it's ready in a oak barrel, and then they transfer it to another oak barrel for some additional, brand new barrel for additional aging. And because of that, they can still call it a bourbon. They don't have to call it a finished whiskey because it's the same thing it was originally aged in. So they only have 3 expressions of Woodford Reserve bourbon. They have the original bourbon, the rye, and they have the double oaked. And like I said, it's a very smooth spirit, delicious flavors of vanilla and caramel. And there is some baking spices, like not the harshness of like a leather or a tobacco, but more of a sweeter
cinnamon and
like maybe incense and stuff like that. And and so there is some fruitiness to it. Some maybe you'll taste some notes of cherry.
And what was your first introduction to it? Like, do you remember the first time you tried it?
No, I don't know why it became my first go-to. I'm sure that what happened was I was with somebody who, in fact, probably most likely it was my uncle. My uncle is accomplished when it comes to travel and food and drinks. He has a lot of experience now. He's a great chef. And since I spent a lot of time with him in the summer, we probably drank a lot of it. And, I've gone away from it only because I just got curious to try other stuff. I never became unhappy with it.
Sure.
Funny, I was traveling to Europe last summer.
And cruise. You took
right, but I flew. I flew to Amsterdam and flew home from Amsterdam. And it's like a 6.5 hour flight. You want to get a couple drinks in if you're flying. So they had like all the basics. They had like Absolute. They had Jose Cuervo.
I'm sure they had Jack Daniels and Jim Beam.
Jack Daniels. Right. They had Jack Daniels. And then boom, airplane bottles of Woodford Reserve. Nice. I mean, I couldn't be happier. And here's the best part on the international flight. They're free. They were free. As much as I could get. And I just went to the different flight attendants.
So you had 30?
I had 6,000 on the way over, and I had 4 on the way home because I was tired.
You were tired. But anyway, so you had 4 because you were tired.
Yeah, I don't want to overdo it. So anyway, bottom line, what a nice surprise it was. I mean, not that the trip to Europe wasn't fun, but I think the first photo I took on my trip to Europe was the picture of the airplane bottles of Woodford Reserve, which I sent to my friends in Atlanta going, look who was on the plane with me.
Well, Woodford Reserve is one that I always liked as well. I don't know why Knob Creek. You know what? I actually do know why. Now that I think about it, I'm not a person who has a very good palate. I like a lot of bold flavors. I like a lot of spicy foods. I need extra flavors. It's got to be spicy. It's got to be intensely sweet or salty. Knob Creek is one of those bourbons. It's going to punch you in the nose, especially if you drink it neat. There's a lot of fire there, but you pour a little water in it and you get a lot of flavor. Just tonight, and just like Ed said with Knob Creek, with the Old
Forester.
No, this other one.
Woodford Reserve.
Woodford Reserve. I didn't move away from it because I didn't like it anymore. I just moved away from it because I got curious about other stuff. However, I had not had Knob Creek in a very long time, and drinking it again tonight, the dominant flavor is roasted peanuts. I mean, I don't know if that's what you taste, but which is sort of incredible to me because I'm not really sure that that's what I remember tasting. And you alluded to the fact that the bourbons have changed over the years, and this is one that actually has, because they used to say that it was 9 years aged.
Correct.
And they were very scrupulous about it. Like, it was always 9.
In fact, it was a giant 9 on the front label. 9 years aged.
And now, I mean, you look at the label. Where'd the bottle go?
I have no idea.
Did we lose the bottle already?
It's on the other side of the room. I'm trying not to drink too much Knob Creek for that reason because it's 100 proof.
Yeah, so it's 100 proof. That's the other thing. They changed the label, and now there's not an age statement on it at all.
At all.
No. And I know that the other expressions of Knob Creek, I think it says patiently aged.
Right, which is similar to Basil Hayden's Artfully Aged, which is the same company.
Right, and
that
we talked about that on our previous podcast about Basil Hayden,
which we love,
which we also
which
love.
is delicious.
Yeah, and Knob Creek was introduced in 1992 by Booker Noe, who was the grandson of Jim Beam for the Jim Beam Company, grouped together as the small batch bourbon collection with those other three, Basil Hayden, Booker's, and Baker's. However, a whiskey called Knob Creek has been made as far back as 1898 by a company called National Distillers, which was bought by Jim Beam in 1987. So they sort of
the formula, I guess.
Yeah, they repurposed the brand and they reintroduced it in 1992. And the problem was that it got so popular that, in fact, in 2009, they ran out of Knob Creek, which was funny because I don't remember hearing about this because that's about the time that I was starting drinking a lot of it, was around 2009. But they ran out of it, and they decided to just embrace it. And so they sent out to journalists empty bottles of Knob Creek with print ads saying, "Thanks for nothing." So, I mean, I guess they've caught up in the interim. But the thing is, it's not 9 years aged. So that's why they don't say it on the bottle anymore. What they do is they take older ones and younger ones and put them together. But I don't know if they actually do that. I want to say that they probably take younger ones because they're probably stopping it at like 5, 6, 7 years instead of going all the way to 9 so that they can have actual product to give people.
I mean, I guess I'd have to have a bottle from 10 years ago and compare it side by side. And I think that's what they know. Like, the recipe's enough. It definitely tastes like Knob Creek to me. And trust me, you can taste Knob Creek's a very distinctive bourbon. A funny story, I tonight, Scott doesn't even know this, I poured the Woodford Reserve and the Knob Creek out into a couple of glasses neat so that we could do our initial tasting. I forgot which ones I put them in. So I took a sip of one. It was Knob Creek. I knew right away.
Yeah.
You don't forget Knob Creek.
Yeah. So there are a couple of expressions of Knob Creek. There's the rye, which is fantastic for you. You've had the rye, right?
I have.
They have a single barrel reserve, which is spectacular, but it is also 120 proof.
Definitely need to add some water and ice to the barrel strength.
There's the smoked maple bourbon, which we mentioned in the last episode. There's 3 limited editions. There's 2001. They did a 14-year. There's a cask strength rye. And 2 years ago, they had their 25th anniversary in which they created a single barrel bourbon, also 120 proof, and they made 300 barrels of it.
So, Scott, how exactly did you first get into Knob Creek?
I think it was, I had a Christmas party at my house. You were there, and you may have actually brought the bottle. I don't actually know who brought it, but
possible.
I wasn't a big whiskey drinker. This is probably like 2007. I used to have huge, crazy Christmas parties.
Scott's Christmas parties were epic. The outside of the house was very minimally decorated. Inside the house was decorated like Santa Claus's house. It was unbelievable. It took months and months and months for the decoration to happen.
It did. My wife and I were very into Christmas. We would have a meeting in September, talk about what themes we wanted to do in each room. Then in October, we would buy the materials. In November, we would, right after Halloween, we would make all of the stuff.
Who has meetings with your wife? I feel like that's why that's why you're divorced now. We're having a meeting. So, did you bring the minutes from last meeting? Yes, I called you an asshole and you stormed out of the room. Minutes over. That's a meeting. I had a meeting. Right. She had to present a PowerPoint on what her vision was, and then I would denigrate it. And
no, it wasn't.
No?
I mean, when
it
we
was
said
collaborative. Was it a collaborative meeting? You built it together. Your joint vision.
Yeah. It was all very amicable and above board. It was not.
She would submit her architecturally approved plans for the addition.
Jesus, it wasn't contentious at all.
It actually was a lot of fun.
Actually, much like divorce, it wasn't contentious at all. It was all amicable all the way through. Amicable. Christ, the Knob Creek is 100 proof.
Right, you're trying to say anemone like you're like
an enemy. I can say an enemy. The anemone is my enemy. And Knob Creek is 100 proof. Yeah. Anyway, so the Christmas party. So 2007.
Right. Somebody, maybe me, brought Knob Creek to the party.
Yeah. It might have been Christmas Candyland. in which every room was a different candy. But that's beside the point. The Knob Creek, I wasn't really into whiskey at that time. I guess maybe I was starting to get into it, but then somebody brought it and I put it in a glass, some ice, and I had it. And it was one of those moments in your life where you go, oh my God, I just found a thing for me. Because I liked some beer. I had brewed some beer before. I've had vodka and some cocktails, and I wasn't really enamored with really anything. But when I drank bourbon, real bourbon for the first time on the rocks, like a real person.
Like a man's drink.
Like a man. Give me a Knob Creek on the rocks and spit in it.
Ruined it.
Yeah, I just did. Something happened to my brain. Like I was, oh my God, this is my drink. I finally found my drink. I don't know why Knob Creek and not maybe some of the other ones that I had before. Maybe it was like I said before, it was very bold in flavor, and I like bold flavors. But for whatever reason, it became my go-to bourbon. That's all I bought. I remember I would mix it with cherry soda. It mixes amazing with cherry soda. I don't know if you want to try just mixing with a cocktail
like
Jim
regular
Beam,
black cherry soda, like that, or like a cherry Coke,
like a cherry Coke. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like Jim Beam,
Dr. Pepper would work then, I would imagine.
Oh, maybe that would be amazing. So Jim Beam goes with ginger ale.
Correct.
Jack Daniels goes with Coke.
Perfectly.
I'm telling you, Knob Creek goes with cherry soda. I think I had Diet Cherry Coke, but it doesn't really matter. Well, the bourbon's sweet enough.
True.
Yeah. So, that's how I got into it. Somebody brought it to my Christmas party, and I drank it for 3 years straight.
I guess, one thing nice is like you get friends who get locked in on one spirit, if you will. And so when you go over the house, like at so-and-so's house, they're always going to have like 4 roses. And
Sergio is always going to have Elijah Craig.
Right. But then Sergio is curious too. So Sergio likes to have, he'll have 3 or 4 others. And, because Sergio never likes exactly what I like, he always doesn't like the one I like. Like, I bought this one. I don't really like that much. I'm like, it's my favorite. I'll drink that.
He's always contrary. He's a contrarian, and we know that. And he knows that. So when he listens to this, he'll be like, yeah, that's me.
He'll admit it. He's a great guy. But he just, like, if 15 people love the pizza, like, I thought the crust was the best part. Like, it's just how he is. It's what makes him who he is. First of all, he's a Giants fan living in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia up to his neck in Eagles fans, and he defiantly sits there and wears his blue Giants jersey, and he's corrupted his children. Though his wife is
corrupted his children.
His son anyway. His wife's a good homegrown Eagles fan.
She is.
And we're blessed to have her.
Not to go off on a Sergio tangent, but he was born in New York City, or at least Brooklyn.
I mean, deep in the middle of Brooklyn, deep in the accent of Brooklyn,
right? Like birthed in the Hudson River. I think he was probably.
That's not true.
Then he moved here. He's lived longer in South Jersey, in Philadelphia Eagles territory, than he lived in New York,
which we've explained to him. But I also understand
he
that
still doesn't get it.
At least he has legitimate claim to be a Giants fan.
He does, right?
Unlike the weaselly Dallas fans.
If you're from South Jersey and you're a Dallas fan, then you can go fuck yourself. Because you're a goddamn asshole.
Damn right.
And I don't care if you don't listen to my fucking
about
podcast,
them boys?
But you are a dick. And I've had 3 Knob Creeks.
Listen, everything Scott says 100% right. If you're from Texas, or your dad was from Texas, or you were stationed in Texas,
fine. That is fine. If you have a connection to Texas, even if you were born here but your dad was from Texas, that I will accept. But if you were born here and your dad was born here, your grandfather was born here, and everyone has been here since 1700s, and you were a Dallas fan, then you're just a dick.
Yeah, and by the way, everybody in the country feels that way. Just regardless of, we could be having this podcast based in St. Louis, in Arizona, in Chicago, in Pittsburgh. Like, listen, I was an Eagles fan my whole life. It wasn't always easy. A lot of wins with no championship. Got mocked by the Cowboy fans. Got mocked by the Giant fans. Got mocked by the Redskin fans. And I still do to a point, and that's fine because they have more championships. But you know who has the most recent championship? We do. And so it feels good because I waited so long. I have loyalty to my squad, and we won a championship, and that's what matters. I didn't become a Seattle fan when they won. I didn't become like a Ram fan when the greatest show on turf was running around. Yeah. You stay true to who you are, the local team around you. I like Dallas. Why? Because Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman had that great run when you were a kid. Then you're a trend puppy. Then enjoy your team, but just know that you're soulless. You're a soulless person. You are.
Yeah.
So enjoy your Cowboys.
Agreed.
And you're probably a Yankee fan on top of that.
Oh, God.
Because now you used to be a Chicago Bulls fan by some reason, but now you're probably a Golden State fan. Or you say, I'm not a team fan. I just follow LeBron. So wherever LeBron goes. So if that's the case, enjoy your Lakers on the goddamn sidelines this playoff. You know who you are. You gutless, soulless Dallas Cowboy, Yankee, Golden State Warrior, Edmonton Oiler used to be. Now you're whatever goddamn hockey team is good. You are just a soulless piece of shit. You know exactly who you are with your goddamn reversible jerseys, depending on who's in the lead this fucking week. We hate you. Everybody hates you. I don't know how you don't hate yourself. I don't know how your parents aren't disappointed in you, except they're probably just as soulless as you are. So there. And by the way, it's been like since we first started drinking these bourbons, since your goddamn Cowboys have even won a championship, and it's never happened. Ha ha you. Ha ha. Ha ha.
Dude, wow. That was epic. I enjoyed the fuck out of that. Here, give me a clink.
That was necessary.
That was necessary. So, speaking of sports, in the news, I saw a picture of the statue of Kate Smith covered in a black shroud, and I wanted to ask you about it.
All right. Well, Kate Smith, famous. She's born in like 1907, originally from the South.
She's dead now.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Been dead since the 80s, I'm pretty sure. She died in her 70s.
She used to sing God Bless America.
Well, that's her. Right. I was going to say she's Irving Berlin's song. I think he reworked a version of it for her in 1931. And until today, I guess, it was played at Flyers games, for example. The Yankees used it for the 7-inning stretch. It's an iconic version of God Bless America. And I think during the 70s, I remember her when I was a kid coming back and singing it live in Philadelphia when the Flyers were winning the Stanley Cup back when I was 6. Honestly, Flyers, can we please get our act together?
Yeah,
it's
so
freaking embarrassing.
What you just said about the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, the Flyers have not won.
But yet,
from way before the
since
Dallas
I was
Cowboys.
6 years old, and I'm 50 now, so
51.
So
one.
So the point is, I'm still a Flyers fan, though. I didn't jump to another team. I'm waiting. We will win again.
No, you didn't jump to the Dallas Stars. Or
no, I didn't. I stayed with my team. I've watched my team not win a championship for 45 years.
Is it the Dallas Stars? Is it the hockey team?
North Stars? I can't remember.
North Stars? No, it was the North Stars, and then they moved to Dallas, and then they were the Stars.
Right, because
I got to look that up.
Because they wouldn't be called the North Stars if they're in Dallas.
Gabe right now is just shaking his head.
I know. He's like, why you guys don't know this? And our friend John is also disappointed in us right now. But
anyway, Kate Smith.
At one point, for about 20 years, she was like one of the top 5 probably most popular or famous female entertainers in the country. She did some amazing things in her life. She sold 600 million war bonds during World War II to raise money for the war effort. And during that same time period, she traveled probably 500,000 miles to entertain the troops. So they're the good things. Now, why is she in hot water today? Well,
apparently she sang some racially tinged
lyrics
to songs.
Right.
Back like in the 30s?
1930s. Yeah. And she would have been about in her mid-20s when this all happened.
And I think context is important here, right? Especially her age at the time.
The songs as they stand, if you listen to them today, are terrible songs. I mean, the lyrics are just offensive.
I was reading them and my mouth was open.
Yeah,
like agape.
Because, and you're talking about over 85 years ago. Mm-hmm. The only point I had about it was that, first of all, she didn't write the songs.
No.
Second of all, the entire country was racist in 1931. I don't understand how she gets labeled with somehow being on like the cause of racism.
Right.
Like, if anything, I mean, did anyone ever see the movie Holiday Inn with Bing Crosby? It has got some of the most racist scenes in it that I've ever seen in movies. My mouth hits the ground. I'm like, oh my God. Like, this was... And by the way, they still show that movie.
It's a beloved holiday classic.
Every single year that movie comes out. And in the middle of it is a scene of blackface and singing that is just a horror show.
I remember down the shore after a night of drinking whiskey with you. We had some breakfast and we watched some old black and white movie.
Right.
And in that movie, I don't remember what movie it was. The woman does something and the man says, "Well, that was very white of you." Right. And then the two of us went, "Oh my God, what did they just say?" Right. This is a mainstream Hollywood movie, probably from the 40s.
Right.
And that was very white of you.
Right. And I mean, how many movies showed somebody like swatting their their wife on the fanny if she stepped out of line or something. That would not fly today either.
Right.
Society advances. I guess the point I was making from this is not in any way to defend the racially charged lyrics that Kate Smith was singing.
Right.
Because of course I don't. But history is a point that you learn from. If Kate Smith was singing that song the day before she died in the 80s, well then yeah, you're like, you know what? I think Kate Smith was a terrible person. But covered her statue, which by the way was not a very attractive statue. It was a scary statue. Like I think little children should probably be afraid of the Kate Smith statue. I would have probably.
No, stop.
It's just not a great rendition of Kate Smith, or maybe it is. I don't know. I've seen a statue. It's a little scary. So now today it's covered in a black shroud as if instantaneously people are offended by the sight of Kate Smith when most people have no idea who Kate Smith is.
Right.
And boom, statue's done. They're no longer using the rendition of God Bless America, which is an iconic, patriotic, and wonderful song. Nobody cares anything else she did in her life. And maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. But I'm saying it's dangerous when you apply modern morality and rules with people who lived in the past. For example, what if, 100 years ago or 200 years ago, 200 years in the future, anybody who used
back in our time machine.
Right. Yeah. If we go 200 years in the future and the people from that time period deemed anybody who uses an automobile to be destructive of the planet.
Right.
So that you'll see people, oh, well, yeah, Gandhi was a nice person and all, but we all know he used a car and helped destroy the atmosphere. So how nice of a person could Gandhi have been?
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said I think a little context is important in these types of decisions that people make. And I'm not saying that those people cannot be asked about that time period and what they were thinking when that thing was going on. But their answers might be, hey, I was 20 years old. These were the songs that were around. And these attitudes were mainstream. But you don't believe in it now. And you're, oh, absolutely not. I condemn the songs that I did before. Right. I mean, that might be the answer. And then you'll go, okay.
Right.
She's not around to say yay or nay on those issues.
If you want to take down her statue, go ahead. This is not a defense of Kate Smith nor her lyrics. It is simply a query question? Query, thank you. Into how do we want to proceed forward?
We should have a discussion about it. We're not having a discussion about it. What we're having is somebody covering a statue, and that's the definitive answer.
Listen, how does this fit in what we're doing tonight?
No, it doesn't.
Well, we're going to talk about different things, and like I said, some are going to be a lot of fun. And, this is actually, there's a lot of humor involved in this just because of the way people react to stuff.
Right.
It's like anything comes out, they're ready to just burn the whole thing down if like one window's cracked. They're like, burn it down.
Yeah.
We'll get a new house.
And I just think that we need to make a more subtle approach, because that's the approach that I take to everything is like nothing is black and white. Everybody has a story. Like somebody at work who is like super like weird. You think they're a weird person. They're like, oh, what the hell's wrong with them?
I got people at work like that.
But the thing is, you don't know what's going on in their life to make them that way.
Right.
Like maybe something is like seriously wrong. Maybe they have cancer. Maybe they're taking care of a aged parent with Alzheimer's. Maybe they have like a daughter or son with some medical condition.
Right. Maybe they have a mental illness. Maybe they're a drug addict.
Yeah. You have no idea what's going on with them. But all you see outwardly is like, oh, they're just super weird.
Right. One thing that isn't like black or white is Knob Creek and Woodford Reserve. They are completely different. You're not going to, very few people like just Woodford.
How did you get back to that?
Or just Knob Creek.
It's
a segue.
It's very good.
Follow the segue. So I strongly suggest that you drink both of them. Not at the same time like we did, because that was unnecessary. But
I'm trying to decide which one I like better. Which one do you like better?
I like Woodford still better. Woodford also makes a heck of a cocktail. It makes a great Manhattan. A Knob Creek Old Fashioned would probably be pretty interesting.
I think I'm going to go with the Knob Creek just because
it's being nostalgic.
No. Well, possibly, but it's just a bolder flavor.
So once again, we appreciate your time, and Woodford Reserve and Knob Creek bourbons. You can't go wrong with either one.
Did we talk about the proof, Woodford?
Woodford's around 90.
Yeah,
90 and a half or so.
Yeah, it's 90 and some percentage.
90 some change.
Yeah.
It's a lot smoother, though, for being only 10 proof points down.
Yeah, so a Knob's a little harsher.
Right.
Woodford's a little smoother. Both flavorful. Both delicious.
Good night, everybody.
See you next time.
If you enjoyed this podcast episode, be sure to check out our next episode, which is way better than this one.
Oh, yeah.
Also, follow and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/whiskeytangent. And follow us on Twitter at Whiskey Tangent. You can follow me personally at That Whiskey Guy. And follow Scott at Giant Cup of Awesome, spelled AWSUM, just to be annoying.
Hey.
You can email us any questions, comments, or love at whiskeytangent@gmail.com. And of course, you can find us always at our podcast website, whiskeytangent.podbean.com.